So did Tony Khan's tweet live up to the hype that he put on it, that what was going to happen on last night's episode of AEW Dynamite was going to be a quote-unquote game changer? Or was it? No, it wasn't. That wasn't the quote. It was something along changing the tide or something like that in the wrestling
Changing the
world.
landscape.
Changing the landscape. Man. Okay, so we had a couple things. We had two big things happen. One was they announced that Shaq might be involved with AEW at some point, and the other was the return of Pac. So, did you think it lived up to the hype that Tony Khan gave it?
I don't think it lived up to the hype. It was a good show. I loved the way it started. I loved the way it ended. A couple of things in the middle kind of fell flat.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I thought the show started off good through the Bunkhouse match, but then after the Bunkhouse match, it kind of waned for a while until we finally had the main event of the evening. I think as far as the segments themselves, I think some of them just kind of fell flat. I think the pacing of the show was good, though. It still kind of flew by, even though there were some segments. It's like, I don't know why this is going this long. There was a match that went way too long as well, I thought. So, I mean, all in all, the show was fine. I didn't even put it as a good. It was definitely not a great or excellent. It was not a failure in any sense of the imagination, though, either. So,
right.
But
and
yeah,
as
it did what it needed to do.
A like middle of the road, just decent AEW show is still better than a lot of what their competition puts out as a good show.
Yes. So, all right. Welcome everybody to That's Wrestling. Thanks for tuning in. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can grab this as a podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. If you are listening to this as a podcast, we do this show live over on YouTube. So the link to the channel is in the show notes. So head over there. Also, if you're interested in New Japan stuff, hit the bell notification. It'll let you know as soon as we schedule a show for New Japan, because their schedule is all over the place, which means our podcast schedule regarding New Japan is all over the place as well. I don't know when we'll be doing our next one. Hopefully Tuesday, but it depends on the English commentary for Sunday's show, so we will see. Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we do our AEW Dynamite post show, so you can come check us out, which we are doing right now, of course. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to eric@thatswrestling.com. There's a link to our Discord channel. You can also follow us on Twitter. That's Wrestling1 with the number 1, and there's one more. Oh, leave a review in your favorite podcast app of choice. So with me tonight, I have Darryl W. Perry. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going pretty good.
We haven't seen you since the year in review.
Yes, the anniversary thing of AEW, and we had discussed at that point possibly doing some kind of thing closer to the end of November, possibly early December of, I forget exactly what it was, though.
Yeah, a kind of fantasy booking out where we think we're going,
yes.
And all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So we'll try to get everybody together for that. Darryl is filling in for the next few weeks because Caleb is moving. So he's going to be down for a few weeks while he's moving his family across the country, basically. So he'll be out for a little while. And hey, yeah. Daxers for joining us in the chat. So like I said, we do the show live, so you can join us in the chat like Daxers did. So let's get into the show. AEW Dynamite for November 11th, 2020, continuing over at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. One thing I noticed right off the bat, brand new intro video for the show, brand new transition cards and match card graphics as well. They've moved from kind of that multicolored dust effect to more like pieces of tempered glass type of effect. That's about how I could describe it. Did you even notice the change in graphics?
I missed that because the feed that I was watching, there was some like dead space at the beginning, so I forwarded through. And like the intro was ending and Taz's music hit as like that's the first thing that I saw was Taz's music, or actually Team FTW or Team Taz. I'm still not sure what they're calling that group. But that music hit. Taz came out because we knew he was going to be on commentary for the cage match. Because like they had mentioned last week,
the Brian Cage match, there wasn't a cage match.
Right, Brian Cage. But they mentioned he was having a match, Taz on commentary. So it's like, oh, okay, Taz is coming out to do the commentary. But he started out by cutting a promo on Darby Allin, putting over Matt Sydal, and then saying he hates Cody because Brandi is hot.
Basically, that's what I got out of it. He basically calls out Darby sitting up in the stands, and he says not to cross Team Taz, stay where you are, and also give your friend Cody that message as well.
Yeah.
So
and then mentioned something about Cody being an EVP, calling himself the Prince of Pro Wrestling, and he's got a hot wife.
Yep. So the match was Brian Cage versus Matt Sydal, and this was a really good big man, little man match here. Sydal gets a few offensive moves in early, but basically Cage throws him around, beats him up for a while. Cage actually went for a Rana at one point, and Sydal turned it into a power bomb. He also did some bicep curls using Matt as a weight. And
I hate those bicep curls.
Then we have Sydal hitting a Meteora off the top to the outside, hits a few kicks, hits a head kick, standing corkscrew senton for a 2. And then Sydal reverses a powerbomb into a roll-up attempt. It's kind of like a reverse code red. It was kind of weird. And then Sydal goes to the top, goes for some sort of dive, and Cage just catches him right in position for the drill claw, hits the drill claw, and gets the victory.
They said that he was going for that diving flip over stunner.
Oh, okay.
Something.
Oh, probably like a blockbuster or something?
Yeah. And one thing that commentary put over, or mentioned rather, when Sydal hit the Meteora and Cage was on the outside on the rampway, and then he rolled into the ring. They said, by instinct he tried rolling out of the ring, but he forgot that he was out of the ring and rolled in.
I missed that.
And it really put over the move and why he then went back into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally if you're outside of the ring and you get a move hit on you, you don't then immediately go back into the ring. But if your instinct is roll towards the ropes and you see the ropes, but you're so disoriented from the move. And it was a really good matchup of contrasting styles. Not just big man, little man, but power man versus high flyer.
Yeah. And even Brian Cage can be a big man high flyer at times if he wants to. So, because he did that standing Rana, or attempted a standing Rana, but it went wrong for him. After the match, Starks grabs the mic, says Cage was incredible, basically says the next step is the TNT championship. If you get in our way, we'll put you in the grave. That was about it.
That wasn't about it. That's about all he said.
Well, that's all he said.
But then, they start beating down Sydal. Wasn't that at this point? And then Darby came running down with his spiked jacket on.
No, that was after the next thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So after a commercial break, Cody Rhodes comes down to the ring. He mentions the crazy weather that they're having. They had 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Jacksonville while this show was going on. He congratulates Darby, says Arn himself aren't seeking a rematch at this time. There's a loss on his record that he needs to avenge, and that is MJF. And then a lady walks out and gets into the ring and grabs the mic from him and says, "How dare you lie to the audience?" And she says her name is Jade Cargill and that she's the total package. She says that she's been sitting on the sidelines studying her competition, which she's been in the crowd for a while. Says that Cody, she says that Cody, I think you called yourself a giant killer. There's nothing giant about you. So a little penis reference. You see, I know a giant, a real giant. Slick statements like yours are echo loud enough to wake him, so next time you decide to think out loud, keep that shit to your damn self. You want it to be a giant killer. I'm nothing to be played with. She walks out of the ring up onto the stage. She says she congratulates him on getting his name back, but I guess you don't have the balls to go by one name. That giant, he's real. You know his name, Shaq. And I'm thinking like, what the hell did I just hear? That is ridiculous.
I also thought it was interesting that they missed the bleep of shit and they bleeped out part of yourself.
Right.
And then out comes Brandi Rhodes and they missed bitch when Brandi called Jade a bitch. They missed that and bleeped out like just complete silence.
I don't know why they would bother bleeping these things out though, because they're allowed to say these things.
Right, but it's probably something of if you have more than a certain number, even with it being on cable, you might offend an advertiser or something. I don't know. But yeah, it just seemed kind of odd and just completely mistimed on the bleeping. But I at first thought she said Shad, and I was thinking Shad Gaspar, but wasn't he the one that passed away, or was it JTG?
No, he died.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember who it was that had passed away, if it was Shad or JTG, but I was thinking, like, that can't be right. It can't be Shad Gaspar. But Shaq does make a lot more sense. But
in the context of what she was saying.
Yeah, but I didn't know that Shaquille O'Neal was interested in being a pro wrestler.
I mean, I know that they've talked about him in Big Show at WrestleMania before, that they've wanted that to happen, but I don't know why they want to bring him in. This like makes no sense. But let's finish up this segment and then we'll talk about
some like old school WCW stuff where they had Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman in a match with DDP and somebody else.
Yeah. Well, let me just address this. One, Jade's promo was not good. It was slow and plodding. It felt like she was reading scripted lines. Like she didn't believe what she was saying at all. And the delivery was just stilted and was not that good. Yeah. And really still makes no sense.
And not a lot of excitement either.
Not at all.
Although I will say that she's got like 14 abs and that's very impressive.
Yeah. When she's up on the ramp, Brandi comes out. I totally wrote this down wrong. I'm guessing it was something along the lines of, do you think tonight is open mic night, bitch? Flapping your gums at my man. Basically, she gave her a tongue lashing, which was like the best promo on the show.
Yeah.
Like, Brandi, this is the Brandi promo that I would expect. If she could just stay a badass babyface, she'd be fine. Like she can always cut these good promos. She calls her a heifer, which is hilarious because she's basically super cut, and she says, "Get your bitch ass off my stage and don't come back." Jerry Lynn has to run out to keep them separate. Oh well, actually, Brandi turned around to start walking away, and Jade smacked her on the ass. And that's when
Yeah.
Jerry Lynn ran out to keep the two of them separated. And while that is happening as well, Brian Cage runs in. Ricky Starks comes in too and starts to try to beat on Cody. Darby Allin runs down to the ring. He's wearing a jacket with thumbtacks sticking out. He does basically a coffin drop to Starks and then hits a splash in the corner on Cage. And then Team Taz leaves the ring. And then Will Hobbs kind of makes a late arrival to it as well to make sure that they leave. Though, again, the interesting, Will Hobbs did not touch either member of Team Taz, just like at Full Gear, he came swinging a chair, but he just hit the car door with the chair, never actually hit either member of Team Taz. So we're continuing, Will, is he or isn't he? Because there's actually been no physical contact between him and that team.
And they still never had that 6-man tag between Cody, or no, that wasn't Cody. That
was supposed to be Moxley. Yeah. Moxley, Allin, and Hobbs are supposed to face Lance Archer, Cage, and Starks.
So I'm wondering if they might wind up doing that, but with Cody instead of Moxley?
Maybe, because we already have announced for next week is Cody and Darby versus Cage and Starks. So that could come into play and get into that 6-man within the next few weeks as well. So I guess we'll see how that plays.
Yeah.
Next up, we had a Moxley promo. He's backstage with Alex Marvez. He says that something occurred to him while enduring the most pain that he's felt in his life. And it's not that he didn't want to say the words "I quit," it's that he couldn't. And now things have changed. When he first came to AEW, the responsibility of being the AEW champion didn't interest him. And he just wanted to snap limbs and hurt people and knock people out as the thrill of combat. Says things have changed with him growing up in the business. You realize that this championship represents everybody who's disenfranchised, every kid who wants to grow up to be a pro wrestler. And I can't quit. I won't quit no matter the challenge ahead. And there's a big challenge ahead in Kenny Omega. Says that he's faced Kenny Omega before and won. Now, beating Kenny Omega once is one thing, but beating Kenny Omega twice, that takes somebody really special, and I'm really special. I'm the greatest pro wrestler on the planet right now. If anyone can beat Kenny Omega twice, it's me. And says someone will take him out eventually, and it could be Kenny, but good luck.
Now, I'm starting to wonder, and going back to New Japan, how many matches? He only had 3 matches with Okada, correct?
Who?
Omega.
4.
He
had 3 for the championship, and then 1 G1 match.
Okay. Because I know that the big 3, they were 1-1 and a time limit draw.
Right.
So did Okada wind up beating Kenny in that G1, or
no? Kenny beat him in the G1. So
okay,
it was Okada beat him for the first match. Kenny beat him in the G1. Then they went to the time limit draw, and then Kenny beat him for the title.
Okay. Yeah, so even the greatest pro wrestler in the world doesn't have 2 victories over Kenny Omega. Probably, if you go back a ways, somebody has 2 victories over Kenny Omega. But the fact that he touched on that, and I'm guessing that, because AEW is trying to sort of target the non-WWE wrestling fans that are super aware of everything happening in other promotions, they probably sort of caught that about, oh wow, nobody nobody's really beaten Kenny twice.
Mm-hmm.
But then Kenny's promo later, not to jump too far ahead, he mentions that the AEW record books, Jon Moxley does not have a victory over Kenny Omega.
Right. He does not.
We'll talk. That was an unsanctioned match.
Yeah, so let's bump ahead to that just because we were talking about and get the storyline out of the way. They had kicked back to Dasha because she was supposed to have a sit down with Kenny, but Kenny had already run off. But Alex Marvez chased him down in the parking lot. Kenny says, or Marvez says, "Hey, about your match with Moxley is going to be on December 2nd. Kenny says that's not news to him. He's known about it for a few days now. He also says that he's heard the chatter of where's the Kenny Omega from New Japan? Where's the cleaner? Where's the best bout machine? Where's the guy who had 5 and 6 and 7-star matches? Well, he's never gone anywhere, and he says it was his time for him to reassume the role of being the best wrestler on the planet. And he mentions how seeing Moxley be named #1 wrestler in the world this year kind of pissed him off. And then he also says, according to the records books, we haven't had a match. What's going to happen when we face off in a real wrestling match? And that was it. So, yeah, so should be a good one.
Yeah. And hopefully there's no screwy finish.
They haven't had like many screwy finishes at all, so I would not expect there to be a screwy finish in a world championship match. So
yeah, I'm hoping that there isn't.
Yeah.
But you never know, because like there's been talk about should Moxley just go ahead and have the belt for a full year and then don't have him lose until whatever, like Revolution. February, Revolution. And I'm also thinking, there's still some definitely unfinished business between Kenny and Hangman. Will Hangman, interfere and cause a DQ? But yeah, it could wind up being very violent or just a very good mat-based wrestling match.
Yeah, I could see it go. I mean, when you look at the matches that Kenny had with Okada, there were some more, for lack of a better word, hardcore spots. There was always a table involved or something like that. So there was always some of those slightly more destructive spots than any straight matches. So, I mean, Kenny is down with that type of stuff anyways.
Right.
So I could see it being kind of a mix, and I think it plays definitely well into Jon Moxley's strengths, because of course he likes all the weaponry and all that good stuff. But of course, we've talked about on this show many times that Jon Moxley trains with Randy Couture, so he is actually pretty proficient in jiu-jitsu as well. So you can have a mat wrestling match as well, so you can go in and out of doing that. So yeah, I would say this is probably going to be a pretty violent regular wrestling match and just pushing the line up to where you would normally get DQ'd.
Yeah.
So should be interesting. But happening on December 2nd, that is a pretty big revelation here. I would not think it would happen until either the Beach Break episode of Dynamite, which is going to happen in the middle of January, so a named show, whereas December 2nd currently is not a named show. So I'm curious how else they stack that card, because it would make sense to stack that card with maybe a bigger tag title match or a big TNT championship match as well, to at least kind of round out that card to make it a big, a big fight feel type of night. But I guess we will see. I was thinking they were going to hold it off till Revolution as well, but they are not.
Yeah, I definitely thought that it would at least be a named show.
Yeah. Next up, we had Butcher and Blade with Bunny at ringside versus Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall, the Natural Nightmares. This was a bunkhouse match, so that's no DQ, no countouts. And QT Marshall right away starts to take off his own belt, but he ends up like dropping it and ends up getting whipped by his own belt. Dustin hits a final reckoning on an open chair on the outside to Butcher. QT and Dustin set up a table on the outside, so we got Chekhov's table right here. And then QT gets hit with a guitar. He comes up bleeding. Dustin brings in a bull rope, and Blade throws a ladder and a trash can into the ring. Bunny handcuffs Dustin to the turnbuckle. And then Butcher and Blade wedge the ladder in the corner. QT gets a flapjack into the ladder, and he continues his bleeding ways. Then Butcher hits Dustin and QT with some kendo shot sticks. Allie stabs QT in the forehead with some scissors. So,
it might have been a spur.
It looked like it had handles.
Yeah, I couldn't get a good view of it, but somebody on commentary, I forget who it was, had mentioned, this is a bunkhouse match. Like I know I saw cowboy boots laying around.
Yeah,
that might have been a spur.
Could have been.
So like a spur makes sense. Having ladders and chairs in the match, that makes more sense than just like a random guitar. Like I still have no clue where Blade found the guitar.
Oh, on the outside they had set up a few bales of hay, and that's where they had some of the more cowboy gimmicks set up. So the guitar was leaning up against a bale of hay.
Yeah, and I noticed that at the very beginning, Bunny had something in one of her back pockets. And I didn't think it was like a can of dip, but then when the handcuffs came out, she no longer had whatever it was in the back pocket. So she must have brought the handcuffs out with her.
Yeah.
There was one spot in the commercial break where like they basically laid out QT Marshall, but then instead of going for a cover, and that there's not going to actually be a victory that happens in the middle of a commercial break. And I actually want to know, what is the reason, since these are supposed to be legitimate fights, right? Like I know that they're not, but they're supposed to be. Why don't matches ever end in that commercial break?
I know it's been over a year. They should do at least one.
Yeah. But yeah, instead of going for a cover and getting a 2 count of, he got his foot on the rope or he barely kicked out, they didn't even go for it and just started rummaging around for more plunder.
Yeah, I must have missed that particular thing. I didn't notice it. Dustin actually got knocked off the apron, which popped the handcuffs open. I'm not sure how he got out, but he still had the other side of the handcuff, so it might have just broken the locking mechanism, I guess.
Yeah.
Dustin comes back in using the ladder as a weapon, hitting both Butcher and Blade with it. When we come back to Blade, he is bleeding like crazy. Dustin and Butcher fight over to the side stage. QT Marshall uses the fire extinguisher to blind Butcher. Dustin gives him a bulldog off of the stage through a plywood box at ringside that was there for this particular spot. Blade's bleeding like crazy from the ladder shot. QT sets up the ladder in the middle of the ring. It's like a huge one. It's like a 12-foot ladder. Does a massive elbow drop for a 2 count. Blade left a puddle of blood in the ring where he was laying when he took that shot. Butcher and Blade hit full death on Dustin across 2 open chairs for a 2 count. QT broke up that pin. QT hits a diamond cutter on Butcher. Blade hits a low blow. Bunny gets knocked off the apron through the table that was set up at the beginning of the match. Dustin hits Blade with the cowbell, and QT hits diamond cutter and gets the 3. Everybody was pretty much wearing either a white shirt or white pants in this match, and they were all covered in blood by the time it was over.
Yeah. And there was one of the moves just before that finishing sequence The one where QT broke up the pin. He didn't just break up the pin. He broke up the pin with a garbage lid, where like he barely rolls into the ring and flings the garbage lid.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that's how he broke it up.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Evilise does the snapmare roll and then does the kick. He did the roll and swung the lid. That's basically what it looked like. What did you think of this match? I thought it was a fun match. I had a good time watching it. So
yeah, I'm surprised, and I'll say pleasantly surprised that the giant elbow didn't end the match.
Yes.
Because what happened after, it was like, all right, things are really picking up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then definitely making use of the chain and the cowbell bull rope. I don't think that Butcher or Dustin actually got busted open.
No.
It would have been, I think, funny if 3 of the 4 guys would have gotten busted open. Just because, like, we know that Dustin likes to bleed.
Right.
Apparently QT and Blade like to bleed because Blade had blood all over his face.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good match. And I happened to have seen something last night while the show was live, where somebody said, "I'm surprised they're putting this bloodbath on live free TV."
Yeah, well, I mean, that's nothing new for AEW,
right?
Cody's bled many times during a TV match,
but just catching that tweet during the show, I was expecting more blood, like everybody to be bleeding. But yeah, really good, and I also like the way that the sequence where Allie wound up going through the table.
Yeah.
Where Blade almost knocked her off, and then QT hits Blade, and then Bunny gets knocked off through the table.
Yeah.
Is this storyline over now?
I hope so. This felt like a blow off.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's done with. So hopefully it is the last. But it made both teams look really good and kind of like elevated both teams higher than they were going into this match. So
yeah, and after the bulldog that Dustin gave Butcher, they mentioned, the one rule that still exists is it's not falls count anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So Dustin can't get the victory right now. Like, Butcher was out for a while. So, if it would have been falls count anywhere, he could have got a 3 count. Could have just been the 10 count of Butcher didn't get up and it's over. But having it, be the match that it was, where nope, the pinfall has to happen in the ring.
All right.
I really like the stipulation, and hopefully it's not something that they overuse.
Hopefully not. Next up, we had a short Matt Hardy segment. They basically recap some of the stuff that happened at Elite Deletion, and Hardy says that he didn't have any respect for Sammy before Elite Deletion, but afterwards he does. Basically said he needed to do everything to Sammy that had been done to him, and he had to make obsolete and be broken, and he'll be a bigger star because of it. Don't squander what I've given you. That's about it. I'm guessing this is the end of the feud at this point, and we'll see where Sammy goes from here.
I think it's the end, and it also, even though Sammy lost, it was a way for Matt to sort of put him over.
Yeah. Then we kind of go into the lull of the show, I think, and this starts off with the Inner Circle induction ceremony. Jericho says that tonight is monumental. For the first time since their formation of the Inner Circle, they're adding 2 new members. He has the original IC come out, and Ortiz, Santana, and Jake Hager come out, but there's no Sammy. So Jericho asks, "Where's Sammy? I mean, I just talked to him. earlier, he got out of the hospital. He says, we'll worry about Sammy later. He introduces MJF and Wardlow. MJF is pretty much crying almost while he's fake crying. He apologizes for his emotions, says it's been a long, hard road to get here. I've been in this business for 5 whole years, and says he started out with a small loan from his dad of $1 million. He says he's written a poem that he thinks Santana and Ortiz will like, and it actually ends up being Drake lyrics. Ortiz calls him out about it. He says that Jericho needs to see through this. And then Jericho calms that down a little bit. And then MJF has a surprise for Jericho. It's a surprise birthday party, and they drop some balloons and confetti that get blown right out of the building because of the wind. And I like the on commentary, Excalibur's like, well, there goes $2,500 worth of balloons. And then he says, next week, the Inner Circle is going to Las Vegas on me. So Inner Circle is going to Las Vegas next week. So this should be interesting.
MJF also said that he doesn't even know who Drake is. I started from the bottom and now I'm here, which is another Drake lyric. But yeah, this segment, just why do they feel the need to have a Jericho MJF 15-hour long segment in the middle of every episode?
It's getting too cutesy at this point.
Yeah.
That's really all I could say. Like, it is just too long. It was drawn out, and they could have gotten some of these things quicker. The poem spot was kind of pointless. It just kind of made it drag. I think they could have skipped that and gotten to the same result.
How many times have other factions wound up adding members and they don't do this induction ceremony? Like, it was just completely pointless and stupid, and we didn't need it.
Yeah, it was over top. But
this could have been handled in a backstage segment.
Yes.
And they did have later on another backstage segment that I think was perfect.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Next up, we had the Alex Marvez. He's like, I really don't want to do this. And he goes and knocks on the Young Bucks dressing room. And he's like standoffish, like holding the mic out at like arm's length so he doesn't have to get near the Bucks. They like throw in slight apologies throughout the entire thing. They basically say that, you know, they're beaten up and all that good stuff, but they're now the champs, and that they're going to take on Top Flight next week. That was supposed to happen tonight, but they were a little too beat up, so they're going to do it next week.
Yeah, and I had not heard of Top Flight before.
Me either.
But immediately after this segment, the announcers said, "Oh yeah, they were on Dark, and they picked up a victory over, I forget who it was, but like, I'm glad commentary filled us in instead of just how some of the times they just expect us to know all of these things."
Yes, that's one thing I think they need to do on a weekly basis is throw a 2-minute segment covering what happened on Dark.
Yeah.
Like, don't put that little bar at the bottom showing everybody who won. I'm not going to read those anyways, and it doesn't tell me anything because, you know, if a heel cheats to win, it doesn't add anything to see defeated so-and-so or anything like that.
And also, since the wins and losses matter, if you're running this scroll across the bottom, tell us what the people's records are too.
Right.
Because they mentioned whenever there was and I forget exactly where in the order this was, the Shawn Spears match.
Mm-hmm.
When he came out, they mentioned, you know, like, that's not a typo on your screen. He's 15-2. He's been doing really good on Dark.
Yep.
Okay, so when you put the little scroll across the bottom, tell us that 7-2 fill in the blank defeated, you know, Jobber McJobberson, who's 0-49.
Right.
or whatever. Because you know, with all of the people that are on Dynamite with these overwhelming winning records, they're beating somebody with losing records.
Right.
You know, like tell us that Griff Garrison has lost his last 10 matches or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. That's just something they need to work on but really it's like take 2 minutes in or out of a commercial break and put up what happened on Dark last night. Give us a highlight reel. Give us a short, 2-minute package covering everything. Yeah. Bring us up to speed.
And also because they always talk about the rankings, like they never actually come out and say, "Oh, this week, here's the top 5."
Right.
They'll just sort of like here and there mention, "Oh, this person's been ranked fill in the blank for this many weeks." Oh, Cage and Punchy Face are now ranked for the first time.
Right.
I am drawing a blank.
Ricky Starks.
Yes, absolute Ricky Starks. And I realized why I hate him so much. When he comes out not for a match, he's wearing these like skinny jean dress slacks. He's not wearing socks, and his pants are about 3 inches above his ankle. And he's got like these super high class dress shoes, which like I understand. All right, you're not having a match, come out, dressed really nice. But dude, you don't have to dress like you're going to a flood while also wearing dress shoes and no socks.
Yeah, well, if you like that, you got to go check out Sonata running in at Power Struggle in the final match because it looked like he just got off of a catamaran.
And he always does these weird kicks that look like there's not a lot of force in the kicks.
All right. So yes, yeah. So that's one thing.
Absolute punchy face.
There you go. Next up, we had the match that we were just talking about: Shawn Spears versus Scorpio Sky. Sky takes the fight to Spears right away. They fight on the outside. Spears turns around, pulling Sky off the top rope. Basic back and forth match. Sky mounts a comeback. Sky hits a slingshot cutter for a 2. They fight to the outside, and ring steps had been pulled out by Shawn Spears into kind of the middle of the I don't even know, the ringside area, and Sky uses those to jump off, but he ends up eating a super kick. Spears then gives him a sidewalk slam on top of the ring stairs, right on the edge. It looked like that probably sucked. And then back
also right in front of the ref.
Yes. I think we've established that if a body is thrown into an object, it's not a DQ, but if an object is thrown into a body, it is a DQ.
Okay, because like sometimes if tables get used and somebody gets pushed or thrown through the table, sometimes that is a DQ. So it's like I
haven't seen that happen in AEW.
I think I figured out that if it's part of the standard equipment,
right,
then as long as the body goes through it,
right.
So like chairs, there are always chairs, not necessarily the folding one that you pull out from under the ring, but like there are chairs around the ringside anyway,
right.
If you throw somebody into the ring post, you're using part of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing they probably look at the ring steps the same way.
Right.
But if you pick up the ring steps and use that as a weapon, like throwing or the thing where you hold it right in front of your face, unless you get dropped kicked, and that's always a spot that happens where like some big guy picks it up and he's holding it right in front of his face. And then
could you call that a defensive move though?
Yes, defensive use? Would be that would be defensive use, but because you're not the one that introduced it, you don't get DQ'd because that other person was still holding it.
Right. Just like kicking the chair into the face or something.
Yeah, it's like, the rules are like somewhat understandable, but there's also a lot of leeway on things.
Aubrey Edwards said that they're working on an official rule book, so hopefully
Good.
this includes one of the rules.
Good.
So after this, back into the ring, Sky puts on the sharpshooter, and while this is happening, Tully hides...
Not sharpshooter. The Scorpio Deathlock.
The Scorpio Deathlock. Tully hides a steel slug under a bandana in the corner, and he starts to distract the ref and Sky, so Sky lets it go, and Shawn Spears rolls over and grabs the slug, and then while Sky comes over, Tully smartly drops another steel slug into the ring, which then distracts Sky. Sky picks up that slug, throws it away, and as he turns around, Shawn Spears clocks him with the loaded glove and gets the 3 count and immediately hides the slug in his trunks. So when the ref goes to check it again, he even takes off the glove and completely looks it over, and there is no slug. It has been hidden by Shawn Spears.
Right, and this is one of the things where if Scorpio Sky were a heel, he would have held on to that slug, laid down, put the slug under his head, and then just act like he got knocked out.
Right.
And then the ref turns around and he like rolls over, and then there's a slug.
Right.
Joel, just like he's the baby face, he just throws it. Oh yeah, there was the spot at
Full Gear where MJF laid down while Jericho was holding the bat, and Aubrey turns around and catches Jericho holding the bat.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Eddie Guerrero used to do this stuff where he'd bring the belt in and then
toss it to his opponent and then fall down.
Toss it to the opponent, fall down, and then the ref looks over and it's like, wait. All right.
Or a chair or something like that. He'd throw it to his opponent and then flop. I always love that finish. I always love that particular spot. It's always funny.
Yeah, but you only see heels do it. You never see the babyface do that.
Right.
Because baby faces are dumb.
Sometimes, yes. Well, in that case, Eddie was a babyface during that time for a lot of it.
Even though his theme music was Lie, Cheat, and Steal.
Right. He did it in comedic and I don't even know. He was just like, he was a babyface even though he did that stuff, but it was always to one up a more a more dastardly heel.
Yes.
Next up we had Tay Conti versus Red Velvet. Not sure why this match had to go as long as it did. It went through a commercial break. Not that these two are horrible, but they are both pretty green, and it did not need to go this long. Conti hits a lot of strikes. She's got a legitimate fighting background, so at least she's got some judo background in her past, so she can throw people around a bit.
She was, I forget if she was actually in the Olympics in 2016 or if she was an alternate for the 2016 Olympics.
I don't know.
But they did mention that she's got the black belt in judo, a blue belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then also like some amateur wrestling. So commentary did put over like her legitimate fighting abilities.
Yeah, and she is like super strong too. She showed it off throughout this match. She's deceptively strong, very similar to Hikaru Shida. She just threw Red Velvet around in some spots. She did one thing that was. Did I even write it down? I'm not sure I did. She ends up getting hit by Red Velvet by a stunner for a 2 count. They both then roundhouse kick each other, and they both go down. Anna Jay, who is seconding Tay Conti, throws a chair into the ring, and Tay is confused about wanting to use it, so she kicks it out of the ring, ends up eating a kick for her when she turns around. Tay Conti turns it around, hits a thrust kick to the face, and then hits like a backpack spin around knee. they need to give this a move. Basically, it starts off with the person in the backpack position facing away, and then she kind of like hinges her around and gives her like a go to sleep type knee.
It was interesting.
Yeah. But anyways, that got her the pinfall victory, and you could see Stu and Evil Uno watching from the tunnel, but they left before she realized that they were there. Not sure if they are disappointed in her not taking the easy way or whatnot. So this continues to be a storyline where Red Velvet seems to be courting Conti, but she still hasn't taken the bait, so we will see.
Yeah, and I did write it's going to be interesting to see the future between these two. Is the Dark Order still trying to recruit Tay Conti? There's also not really been any resolution to the Colt Cabana thing. Will Dark Order wind up splitting and having, like Colt Cabana, or not Colt Cabana, Wolfpack, like a Dark Order red and black, and then the Dark Order black and white, kind of like how NWO split and they had like the good guys and the bad guys, or just people wind up leaving the Dark Order.
Right?
Can you leave the Dark Order?
That is going to be the question, because a lot of them, it's really like some of them are heels, some of them are baby faces. So eventually there's got to be some sort of thing that happens. So I guess we will see. I just looked up. She participated in the trials for the Brazilian Olympic team for the 2016, but did not make the team.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember if she had actually made the team, if she was an alternate, or what it was, but I knew that there was some kind of Olympic qualifying, which even making the trials is super impressive.
Yeah, so it shows that she has some natural ability here because she was already a legit fighter. So I could see her coming along pretty quickly now that she's going to be working with Dustin and QT Marshall probably a lot more regularly while she's here in the States. So I could see her coming along pretty quick, and I could see her being like a good baby face at some point.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Jericho is celebrating them going to Las Vegas, and Sammy comes in and says that MJF sent him an email to go to the beach. Where were the rest of you? And then MJF says, I sent a second email, and everyone confirms that they got the second email, but Sammy didn't. And Jericho's like, it's cool, everything's fine, we're going to Las Vegas, here's your ticket. And the Inner Circle all leaves except Sammy, and Sammy stares down MJF. He's not buying his crap at all, and that was the end.
And MJF did say, I sent a second email.
Yeah.
And then Jim Ross said he better check his ticket to make sure he's not in coach, because everybody else had mentioned first class. And JR was like, middle seat in coach, not good. And it's going to also, I wonder if they're actually going to Las Vegas.
From what I've heard, they are.
Okay. Because I was wondering, like, are they actually going to Vegas, or are they just going to set up some rooms in, either Daly's or the football stadium, just like set up some rooms to look like a casino in Vegas. Hopefully they don't wind up doing a super long, here's the Inner Circle takes Vegas thing. If you want to have, like short little 30-second to 1 minute skits throughout the show, that would be much better than like one long 5 or 10 minute thing that feels like 15 hours.
I'm kind of hoping that timeline wise this takes place during the weekend and they're just showing highlights on Wednesday, because I really want them to accidentally run into Moxley because he lives in Vegas.
Ooh, yeah.
Just as a quick thing, they find him like drinking at the bar, or he's in a casino or something. It'd be even more hilarious if Renee was with him, but I think she's still under her 90 days. Yeah, so that was about it. We'll see how this goes when they go to Vegas. They announced for next week. We have Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy. They cover some of the stuff that the segment that happened at Full Gear when Kip Sabian wants an apology for almost hurting Penelope Ford and slapping OC across the face. And then we have Bucks versus Top Flight, we've discussed, and Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks and Inner Circle Slays Las Vegas was the card on that. I think there might have been one more announced match that
there was another.
Oh, we'll talk about it. It comes out
during.
It comes out at the end of after the last match. So before the match starts, Eddie Kingston comes out and he's on the mic, basically says, Moxley made me say I quit, and that's something I'm going to have to live with, but I will continue on and I will become the champion at some point, basically. So we have Rey Fenix versus Penta El Zero M once again, and hopefully nobody dies, and nobody did. It looked like they start off with a few counters with each other. They both hit kicks on each other, lots of rolling around and lucha. And then Penta tears open Rey's mask. And they mentioned normally this would be a DQ in Mexico or Japan, but not in AEW. And Kingston was harping on this as well about it being a DQ here, and it'll come in a little bit. Penta sends Fenix hard into the post, which made a nice thwack. I don't know if you saw if that was in the commercial or not. I was watching them fight, so
yeah, I was watching a fight feed.
Yeah.
So I hate the picture-in-picture thing. I love watching the fight feed because like there is commentary during the picture-in-picture,
and it's not tiny; it's the full-size screen. It's just has commentary. So basically,
but I also really hate hearing JR promote our guaranteed 100% JR's barbecue official picture-in-picture coming up in 3, 2. Like, no, you're not supposed to acknowledge your commercial breaks.
He eats a backbreaker. Fenix, that is, eats a backbreaker in the ring. Penta continues beating on Fenix. They exchange some chops. Fenix starts to make a comeback with some kicks, hits a lethal injection. And then Fenix tears a hold in Penta's mask, and Eddie Kingston is incensed about this. So clearly he's favoring Penta over Fenix here.
Penta's his best friend.
Yeah, exactly. They keep going back and forth a bit. Penta hits this crazy flipping DDT sort of thing. I don't even know what to call it.
I called it a flippity-doo DDT brainbuster.
There you go.
And like even just trying to explain it, the like flipping action was kind of like that of a Canadian destroyer.
Yeah, it's like
where like both people did like a full flip, but he had him in like a DDT brainbuster sort of thing, and like he was spiked.
Yes.
Just like straight on his head. And they even mentioned a couple seconds later, like from the overhead, you can see the sweat mark from where his head just like went into the ring.
Fenix hits a corkscrew dive on the outside and then hits a senton off the top for a 2. They fight on the apron. Penta hits a package pile driver on the apron, then a destroyer on the floor, then back in the ring. He hits another package pile driver and gets the 3. It's Penta and Fenix. Of course, it's going to be good. This was an excellent match, and I loved Eddie on commentary. Basically playing the heel commentator, praising things Penta did and poo-pooing things that Fenix did.
And he even got called out, and I'm glad he did.
Mm-hmm.
Where he got called out for making Rey Fenix forfeit his victory over Penta in the Eliminator tournament. And of course, he had his thing. Rey Ray was too hurt to fight. Plus, I thought Penta had a better shot at beating Kenny anyway.
Mm-hmm. After the match, Kingston grabs the mic, says that his best friend showed his brother who is boss. And
hold on. But before that, he said, "We still got some time, right? AT&T, I'm taking over your airwaves." So, like, it was done in such a way to where I'm thinking, all right, we're going to listen to like a 5-minute long Eddie Kingston promo because there was like 5 minutes left. But he was like, I'm hijacking your show. You've still got time. I'm hijacking your show.
Right. Like it was legit
it's
filler.
The Eddie show now. Yeah, like it was just like legit, like he's taking over.
Yeah, like it was legit, oh crap, we're running short. Hey, Eddie, fill the last 3 minutes of the show type of deal, which, he could legitimately do if they needed to.
Right.
So he says that, they put on a good showing and then says, my best friend showed his brother who's boss. And while he's talking to Penta, he's slowly nudging and kicking Fenix out of the ring, rolling him off the ring, out of the ring. He says, you don't need your brother. You don't need that dead weight. And then Pac's music hits and Pac has returned and he says, Kingston, the bastard's back and you've made a very, very big mistake. Pac makes his way to the ring and all the refs come down to keep them separated and they're trying to get at each other, but they never do. And this is where they announce Pac versus Blade next week.
And the reason it's not Pac versus Eddie, and they made sure to mention, like, this is why every official is out here. Eddie's not being cleared by doctors. So... Right. They have to make sure that Eddie and Pac don't get at one another.
Right.
Although, like Eddie is provoking and, sort of taunting Pac the whole time. But I am also curious what Pac's beef is with Eddie. Like there's not been any, previous interaction between these two that I'm aware of.
Well, the beef is that he is taken over and now Death Triangle has an issue because Pac, Penta, and Fenix were together before it hit. And if right before the promo last week with Pac, when it was still black before we faded into Pac, the words were from Eddie Kingston, "Where's your British friend now?" And that's how that promo started. So he does have an issue here.
They did mention something about Death Triangle. But again, this was something that I wasn't personally able to put all of the pieces together. So hopefully they do wind up explaining that a little more going forward. Hopefully they'll let the wrestlers do it in a promo of their own instead of the announcers explaining everything to us.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. I'm guessing Pac is going to have to say something about this after the match with Blade next week. I'm sure he's going over on that one. And I think it's going to come down to there's going to be a split in the Eddie Kingston faction here. Because Penta is clearly going wicked heel.
Penta's definitely a heel.
Penta and Fenix is going to at least spin off to be a babyface, and however that happens, deals with Pac or whatnot. Pac might just have a issue with Eddie Kingston. He may roll off back to being by himself again. But Fenix is definitely going to be spun out as a babyface, I think. So that's how you end the Lucha Bros team, and then they can go running down the singles road.
Yeah, and again, overall, really good show. Started off high, ended high. There were just a couple of things in the middle that fell flat for me, and where it started going sort of down for me was that MJF Jericho segment.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed. We are over a year in of AEW doing live events, how come they cannot get these damn audio problems fixed? It is so ridiculous when they cut to either a video package or a backstage segment. They don't cut the mics in the arena, so it just feedbacks through.
There's feedback that comes back through, and they don't cut the mics. And oh god, there's echoes.
How is this still a problem? I mentioned it last week with Caleb, but I was at the second AEW live or Dynamite show, and when they showed the video or any of the backstage stuff, there was no audio for us in the crowd.
Yeah.
So that's like, okay, I get it. Second episode. All right. You might have a little glitch here, but we are 60 shows in of pay-per-views plus Dynamite. This should not be a problem anymore. And this was a problem last week, and it was a problem this week, and it was probably even worse this week than it was last week. Normally they like catch it after 5 seconds, like, oh crap, got to kill those mics. There was a segment, I think the Jon Moxley segment, they didn't catch it at all. It was echoing the entire time.
Yeah. And like, I basically wound up missing most of what was said just because there was the echo, and it just like drove me crazy, and I just tuned out.
Right. Yeah, I went back before we started the show so I could get what he actually said, because I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to follow this. So I just want to stay up live, and then I could pause it and write down what he said. But yeah, so that's just kind of a big production issue here. And then, of course, some of these matches with Tay Conti and Red Velvet, right now we don't really have any character work from either of them. So it's kind of weird when they come out on Dynamite and have a match, and not only have a match, but have a match that goes through a commercial break. So an excessively long match. Every match on this show went through at least one commercial break. So it's like, okay, this is getting a little formulaic at times, especially for those who pay attention to the picture-in-picture or watching on the fight feed, because it's the same formula every time that they get the heat during the commercial, and as soon as they come back for commercial, you know the babyface is going to make a comeback.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah. And I would, if I could, like just wave a magic wand and say, I'm the head producer and I'm helping come up with, timelines for stuff, I would make sure that you have a match end before you go to a commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to do a commercial break during the middle of something, do it during somebody's entrance.
Right? That's what I always say, like, especially when you have a live crowd, you have the first person, they have the beginning of the entrance, cut to commercial, they get into the ring, the other person starts making their entrance, and when you come back from commercial, they're getting into the ring. Boom, problem solved. Like, everybody doesn't need, and it's not like all these people have elaborate entrances anyways, so it's not like you're missing anything. So, and of course, once in a while, you're always going to see somebody's full entrance, so you're going to get used to that type of thing. It's just one of those things that you are used to, but that's the perfect place to put it. I mean, they did that for the final match of the evening. They had Ray come out, and then they went to commercial, and then Penta came out after the commercial, and then they started the match.
Yeah. And like, if you're doing a big, huge in-ring segment sort of thing, where you've got to set up a podium for some weird reason, make sure you do a commercial break there.
Right.
Or go to a backstage segment while that's happening. Like, there are ways that they could definitely wind up doing this to where they're not going to commercial during the middle of a match. Because again, like, it's supposed to be a actual fight. Like, you don't watch a football game and then, it's 2nd and 10, we're going to commercial now. Like, they don't do that. I understand, like, with basketball, you have to go to commercial in like the middle of a quarter. But, baseball and football, they don't go to commercial during the middle of a play.
Right. And what is the odds of every match going 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Or 12 minutes. Every single match on the card always goes 12 to 13 minutes. It's like, that is not how that works.
Yeah. So I did pull up the match card for next week, which you already ran it down. I just wanted to make sure that it was all, exactly right. So according to eWrestling.com, it's the Bastard Pack versus the Blade, Orange Cassidy versus Kip Sabian, and Penelope is going to be ringside. Inner Circle slays Las Vegas, Young Bucks versus Top Flight, and then Cody and Darby Allin versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. 1, 2, 4 matches. They're going to wind up announcing something else.
Right.
And here's a question, because I know that you generally watch BTE, and
I did not watch this week.
I was going to say every now and then you'll sort of talk about it on the podcast. Apparently, there's a BTE championship now.
Yes, they are competing.
Do you think that they will have title defenses of that on Dynamite?
No, because it's non-wrestling stuff.
Oh, okay.
The championship was for non-wrestling stuff. The first tournament was a Gator golf mini golf tournament.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, so we'll be fine. I actually just pulled up because I was going to pull up the just to check what the ratings were, and I see top headline is AEW signs Jade Cargill to multi-year deal. I hope they know what they're doing because she's been wrestling for like a year.
I had never heard of her. I didn't recognize her. So I didn't know if she was somebody that I was supposed to have heard of.
She's been training with QT Marshall, so.
And I guess we should probably talk about the other huge announcement that AEW had on Tuesday.
Yeah, the video game that is going to I won the promo package was hilarious because there's a full spoof off of Steve Jobs with the black turtleneck, and everybody who came out had a black turtleneck and jeans and glasses. But they're going to have a full-fledged regular console game in the style of No Mercy. And actually, I think it's the original producer, the art director or the director of the No Mercy game from the N64 is actually producing this game as well. So it should be good because everybody considers that as pretty much the top of the line for wrestling games.
Yeah. So the console game, they're also rolling out something called AEW Elite GM.
Yeah.
And they're having an AEW casino.
Yep. So 2 mobile games. So they're going to have the AEW General Manager where you make the booking and see how well you can do. And I think there's some fun things that they were talking about. Like one is locker room morale is like a thing that you have to pay attention to, as well as being the GM and drawing crowds and all that fun stuff. So that should be interesting. And then they're going to have like a casino style mobile game, which is, I'm sure is just going to be basically simple stuff like, blackjack and slot machines and all that fun. Just to play around with and have an AEW or Double or Nothing themed, really, probably.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the way that you increase locker room morale is to tell people that they're not grabbing non-existent brass rings and crashing through glass ceilings. Yeah. Yeah.
I just clicked on the tweet that has Jade Cargill is all elite. The first one is rolling eyes. The second one is just keep her off the mic. Third one is she's not a wrestler. End of story. This is not a popular one, so I guess we'll see how that plays out in the future.
I guess she's going to dark for a while.
Yeah. Rating wise, AEW is up a bit, 6.6% from last week, averaging 764. And NXT was up as well, 3.6% at 632. So, yep. As far as total viewers, down, definitely below the running 10-week average. That's actually like one of the lowest overall totals of the past 10 weeks. We will see how it goes when it comes out, when the news starts to fall down a little bit some more, because they're still continuing to dominate the ratings. But see how that
Yeah,
goes.
and since I did mention the rankings earlier, I figure I should pull those up. So Moxley is, of course, the AEW World Champion. And I guess they don't actually put their champions in the rankings.
Correct, because they are the
and
champ.
then Darby Allin is the TNT, and apologies on my big giant face on the screen. I had to shift so I could see my screen better. Kenny Omega, number 1. MJF, number 2. Cody, number 3. Then Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, 4 and 5. So of the top 5, Kenny is undefeated in singles, but also has the fewest singles matches.
Yes, he was the tag team champion all year.
Right. I am surprised that Ricky Starks is 12-2. I'm guessing a lot of dark matches.
Yes.
And then women, Big Swole is now, I'm assuming if you're number 1, you're the number 1 contender. Big Swole, number 1 contender, ranked number 1, 11-4 record. Nyla Rose, number 2. Penelope, Serena Deeb, and Britt Baker round out the top 5.
Britt Baker needs to get some wins so she can move up that ranking, because we've already had Shida beat Nyla twice. We've had her beat Penelope. I'm sure she's just gonna decimate Swole if they ever have that match. Though I did really don't want to see that match.
Britt Baker's 6-6.
Yep.
Which again, she was out of action for a lot of the year, but still, I am surprised that she has that many losses.
Yeah, it was all at the beginning of the year.
Penelope Ford has a better record.
Yep.
And then in the tag team, it's number 1 FTR, number 2 Best Friends, Natural Nightmares, Jurassic Express, and then Butcher and the Blade.
Yeah, so interesting on the tag rankings, because now Young Bucks brand new champions, which means all those contenders will be brand new. Whereas in the women's, like I said, Nyla Rose and Penelope have already had matches with Hikaru Shida during this reign. And then same over in the men's. Prior to this week, like 4 of the 5 had already lost to Moxley, but now we have Omega sitting on top, which they have not had a match. MJF has lost, Brian Cage has lost, and Ricky Starks is new to the top 5. And of course, Cody has his self-imposed, won't go for the AEW championship. Sure, there's going to be ways around that in the future, but they're sticking with it for now until either he turns heel or something happens where the fans basically demand that it happens.
Yeah, and then I'm guessing at some point in the next few weeks, FTR and Best Friends will have like a number 1 contender match or something.
I would think possibly.
Like I'm still confused about how exactly the rankings operate.
Yeah, it has to do with record plus the quality of opponents. So if you just beat 10 nobodies and you're 10-0, then you're not going to be ranked as high as somebody who beats 8 better people but loses 2 of those.
So I'm assuming that's why Big Swole's 11-4 is higher than Nyla's 12-3.
Right. And because Nyla's lost to the champ twice, so that would bump her down.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see, because you look at Jurassic Express's 11-5 and they're ranked higher. Well, I guess that would make sense because they actually lost 1 less.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. So yeah, we'll see how this goes in the coming weeks, and of course, all the main records reset coming up here in 6-7 weeks now when the beginning of the year starts. So we'll be wiped clean. But Moxley's sitting there with the perfect 21-0 this year, but that he might get that one loss in December. They pull the trigger on Kenny Omega right away here.
Yeah, and I also noticed that for some of these guys, they also show and gals, they show the overall record. So it's not just, oh, here's how they've done this year, but also here's how they've done overall. So Kenny Omega, 33 wins. I'm guessing that includes his tag team.
Yes, that includes all matches that they're in.
Okay. Yeah, that's something else that I was a little confused on.
Yeah, if you actually go over to the roster, it shows their singles, tag team, and trios records individually broken out. So
okay,
see those. Yeah. So anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up this evening?
No, I just wish that they would actually show the rankings or give us more info on the rankings during the show instead of, every now and then mentioning, oh, this person is ranked here, or Nyla Rose has been ranked number 1 for 24 weeks, or whatever it was.
For getting that stuff filled in, I'm guessing they still do it, but they were at least regularly having Jen Decker do a 5-minute video over on YouTube discussing the rankings each week. I don't know if she's been doing that lately, just scrolling through the thing right here. It doesn't look like it. But I know she was doing it for a while, so maybe.
Excellent.
All right, so thanks everybody for tuning into That's Wrestling. If you would like to send us comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to eric@thatswrestling.com. If you're listening to this as a podcast, head over to the YouTube channel because we do this show live, so you can join in the fun in the chat room. We also cover New Japan stuff as well, so if you click the bell notification, it'll let you know as soon as we schedule a live stream. New Japan is all over the map, so it's useful to have that bell, so it'll let you know when we schedule one. Also, there is a Discord you can come hang out with. Link is in the show notes. And also hit up your favorite podcast app and leave us a review. It helps us out in the search rankings. And there's one more thing I usually add, but I'm totally spacing what it is. Oh, head over to Twitter. You can follow us at That's Wrestling 1 with the number 1 at the end. So for Darryl W. Perry, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you've been watching and listening to That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.